Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and today I'm going to be joined by my good friend Veiled Shot. We're going to talk about if you should switch to the Wizard or not. So we'll give you a general overview and some perspective on switching to that class in general. Let's get into it. Alrighty, how we doing today, Veiled?
Doing pretty well today, actually.
Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. So we are lucky enough to be joined by a fellow content creator who can actually give a lot of perspective on this subject. I've been asking, I've been being asked to cover this for a long time because I had a little bit of a series going where I talked about every class, did a deep dive on them, found someone that played that class. And you played Crusader for a long time and then recently actually made the switch to Wizard and then was able to acquire some experience on the Wizard. So you'll have a lot of perspective on if the switch was regrettable or if you're happy about it, and be able to walk us through the Wizard in general. And the first thing I want to do is I want to pull up the tier list right here, and I want to get your opinions on if the grades on the website for the Wizard are accurate or if there's anything you disagree with.
Yeah, so I would say that I haven't gotten to test all the legendary items yet because, of course, it takes like several weeks to get them all. But I have been, theory crafting with some builds, and actually being able to see the skills themselves has really actually changed my perspective on a lot of things. I would say that for the most part, PvP remains the same. I still think they're an absolute powerhouse. In fact, I think that they're even stronger than a lot of people might, say. And that's simply for the fact that there's a lot of skills here that most people don't even take advantage of. If I just pull up the skill menu here, something like slow time here. For those of the people that don't know, attack speed slows in this game, slow down animations as well. And so you're basically reducing your damage taken because you're slowing down the amount of time that it takes for them to launch their abilities. And I've never seen a wizard use this skill before in PvP. And this not only slows attack speed, but also projectiles themselves and enemies. And so I feel like there's a lot of builds that people just haven't even delved into. Like ice armor, I don't see a lot. This one absorbs for me 25k damage, which is an absolutely absurd amount of shielding here. And you could really combo a lot of these skills together. So to be honest, I think that this class is probably a little even stronger in PvP, and it just hasn't been explored enough.
Okay, we did always, the site is a conglomerate of a lot of our opinions. We did always kind of have PvP, the Wizard, right here for the last, month or so. We've had them at the top of the board. So I do think there's a lot of general agreement on that. Is there anything on here that you disagree with?
I would say in general that I think the beginner friendly is accurate. It's a little tough to get the combos going, but the one thing that I would say is a little different is probably the solo and the leveling, and that is because there's a lot of skills here. For one, teleport is an absolutely absurd skill for just in general open world farming, leveling up, and solo content. A lot of the times when you're playing solo, one of the biggest things for me as a Crusader that actually would end up killing me was the fact that I'd get trapped in a wall from a yellow monster, right? Or just overall couldn't run away. The teleport really just avoids all those scenarios, getting out of situations quickly. It's absolutely amazing. And then leveling, actually, just overall being able to clear monsters really, really quick, simply for the fact of one skill in particular, and that's Lightning Nova. This skill you can actually cast while moving, and it just shoots lightning all around you, and then it comes back to you. And oftentimes this ability alone can kind of kill off a group of enemies, and then you can just keep on moving along. So keeping up with people is very easy. They're one of the quickest classes in the game. And as long as you're not running a bunch of channeling skills overall, which a lot of people kind of refer to as why the Wizard isn't super strong for leveling, then you're going to be okay. But I don't think the channeling skills are particularly amazing for solo farming, actually. I think that you could run a lot of other skills and be absolutely fine for this stuff. So I would say that it's probably a little lower rated, especially for the fact that it's like absolutely way lower than any other class in the game. Like the next one up for solo play, for example, is at a 7, is what I'm seeing, and the Wizard's at a 3. I think that's completely too low. I think that at least it should be on par with those other classes. And honestly, when you're open world farming, I think they're actually one of the best. Simply for the fact that because of the teleport, because of the Lightning Nova, and their damage is also really good when those elites do spawn.
Okay, so like to wrap up the tier list thing, we update this, as much as needed, so we can maybe, do that here in the next day or two. We'll meet up and get some tier list stuff more accurate here if we can get a meeting on Discord or something. But what about the overall up top? Would
Yeah.
you make any changes there? Because Wizard ended up, maybe if we make some adjustments soon, we may see Monk and Wizard come in close to being tied. Do you think Wizard should slide up and be like maybe third, fourth, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think they should probably be up there with Crusader, but just behind them. And if we're going to talk about damage a little bit and stuff, I actually think that the Crusader offers a lot of damage here from my swap from Crusader. Whereas Wizard, I think they should probably be just behind them, but ahead of the Barbarian and Monk and how much they actually offer overall.
Okay, interesting. Well, then, what I would like to do now is just kind of ask you, before we get into like rating the skills and walking people through some builds really quick here, I would like to ask you about your perspective switching to Wizard. Like, is it something you're happy about? Was it better or worse than you thought? And just kind of like the general context around it.
Yeah, so there's two reasons why I'd want to swap. One is obviously for content, but the second thing is for just the overall fun aspect. And this is a few things for me. One, how easy is it to play this class? Just like in the content that I'm normally doing, which is, let's be honest here, it's going to be ship farming, right? So how easy is it to go and do those, that type of content? Well, it's going to be very, very easy for this class. You're going to have the ranged, well, we're disconnecting there. We're going to have the ranged abilities, which makes it super easy to kind of kill off all those monsters. We're going to have the ability to teleport around, as I mentioned. So all that type of content, like open world farming, is actually easier than it was with the Crusader. And then, of course, is how quickly am I getting content done? Those are the two things that I'm worrying about. And actually, this is something that I did not expect, and that is Crusader does a immense amount of single target damage that I was not ready for, because Wizard actually I think is lower damage in terms of burst damage than the Crusader. So when we're talking about doing dungeons, we're talking about Elder Rifts, we're talking about even killing a yellow monster in the open world, Crusader absolutely outclasses the Wizard. And I think that was a little surprising to me because the Wizard was supposed to be this heavy damage dealing class, and really the advantage I found is consistent damage and ranged. That's really what my advantages were.
Yeah, because we've always thought of the Crusader as like the utility class that is trash single target, and that's kind of like their downfall. It almost sounds like to me you're making a case that Crusader should be higher, like second or third on the chart, or I guess it is third, but you're almost making a case that you regret it.
So the damage is definitely something that I miss because the banner, you really can't compete with banner. Like if you're using banner, even solo, getting a guaranteed crit is just an absolutely absurd mechanic in this game, right? And so it's really hard for classes to compete with that. But I will say, when we're talking about like other content areas, specifically challenge rifts and PvP, which in my opinion are the absolute hardest things in the game and the things that you should be building for, Wizard definitely outclasses the Crusader. The abilities just for utility as well as damage in PvP with slow time, with black hole. And then you have the challenge rift builds, which are actually really interesting. And despite the fact that you have to channel a lot of your abilities, it doesn't really matter because of black hole and the fact that you can move people away from you and suck them in. So I think that when it comes to those two game modes, Wizard is way better than the Crusader.
Okay. Cool. Can you just give us an overarching view real quick here of what are the positives and negatives of a Wizard? Like what kind of player will enjoy the Wizard and what kind of player will dislike the Wizard?
So I would say that the Wizard is definitely there's two parts of the Wizard that I think are really polarizing. One is the way they move around the map. So unlike the Demon Hunter, you can't move and attack. You have to stop and move. And then on top of that, they stop and move all the time. One of the biggest combinations on the Wizard is, dropping your Ice Crystal and dropping a channeling ability. And I'm completely stuck in place for this entire duration. So I really can't move. So if I wanted to move, pop it and then move, I have to set up a channel again, which is a little bit clunky, if I'm being honest. But then on top of that, you have teleport. It's like these random bursts of movement followed by completely stationary activity, which is really strange. So definitely like the way it's not as fluid as other classes is how I would classify it as. Like if you're playing Demon Hunter, you're playing Crusader, you're on your horse, you're moving and attacking, and you're dropping your abilities as you're moving. The Wizard does not feel like that. It is very clunky in my opinion, and it's not fluid at all. And the other thing is you're kind of, I would say that they have a ton of build diversity, but also they're kind of locked into certain combos. So what I mean by this is like if you're running Ice Crystal, this skill itself does pretty much nothing in terms of overall effectiveness if you don't run it with Disintegrate or if you don't run it with Ray of Frost, because these are the skills that combo with Ice Crystal. And the same thing goes with things like, let's say, Arcane Wind, where this does more damage against burning enemies. Well, you kind of have to run a burning skill if that's the case. And then you have like Black Hole is like a must-have in PvP, and then you combo that with oftentimes Ice Crystal and Ray of Frost. So you have a lot of build diversity, but it's also like build diversity that has set builds. You have to run these two, 3 skills together, and you're constantly running Teleport. Like that's pretty much a must-have everywhere.
Yeah, it almost feels like for most classes, maybe everybody but the Demon Hunter, they've got like a must-have movement skill. So yeah, that's just kind of a, mobility is king in gaming, and you've got to have mobility, especially in PvP. But okay, cool. Can you now just quickly pull up the skills tab, and maybe when somebody's new to the Wizard, they're leveling up or they're trying to put a build together, can you just, what I like to do in videos like this is rank each skill S, A, B, C, F, like so people get a general idea of the builds that are going to be a little bit more popular and put together.
Yeah, so I mean, basic attack first. Really, you're going to use Electrocute a lot of the time, unless you're pretty much in PvP. I would say is the really only case for Magic Missile here. The reason for this is this one's going to be leaping, and this one's going to be a single target always. So you kind of have like a little bit of AOE here. So I would say this one is probably an S. This one's an A. There's situations for Magic Missile. Then we have Arcane Torrent. This is a channeling skill. It's going to hit everyone in the area. If it's single target, this actually does a lot of damage, but if it's AoE, it's kind of lackluster. So really good for bosses, in my opinion. But other than that, they're kind of, I wouldn't run Arcane Torment a lot. So maybe like an A-ish skill there, maybe a B. And then Arcane Wind, this is a skill that I pretty much never use unless I'm comboing it with Burning. And so in those situations, I would say it's an S skill, where this does a lot of damage. You're getting that 50% increased damage. So in that case, it's an S skill. But if you're not running that, you could oftentimes see this as like a B type skill. Black Hole, this is a skill. This is an absolute S plus skill. You could even use this in PvE content if you're running in challenge rifts or those more difficult types of PvE content. It also does damage, which a lot of people don't know. It actually just does a decent amount of damage. And if you get the legendary items to modify it, it becomes the strongest skill in PvP, in my opinion. Disintegrate, this is your go-to wizard skill in combination with Ice Crystal, which we'll get to in a second. This can have a lot of modifications, whether it's doing more damage or just overall just absolutely annihilating enemies. Channeling skill, and it ends up comboing with Ice Crystal to where it hits everyone and locks on and extends your range, which makes it an absolute S plus skill in PvP. Ice Armor here. This one's an interesting one because I think this is an excellent skill, but you really don't care about it in PvE content because you don't really care about absorbing damage generally. So I'd say it's an A skill and has some uses in PvP. Overall, especially the chill factor is really, really solid. Ice Crystal, this one is going to be pretty much an S skill for any build running the beam builds, the Ray of Frost or the Disintegrate. And that is because it combos with them so well. Long cooldown, so I would say this is an A skill. It really is there simply for the fact that Disintegrate and Ray of Frost are so good. Lightning Nova, I'm going to put this one as an A skill as well. As you can see, these skills are so good, all of them pretty much. It's just that you have to fit them in the right builds. Lightning Nova here is your classic PvE farming skill. Even in dungeon runs, this is really, really solid to help you move along and kill off all the trash. So I would say this is probably an A. Probably drops off when you start getting those challenge rifts, PvP content. Meteor, this is actually a skill that I thought was going to be way better. Maybe this is a hot take, but I'd probably put this as a B skill or maybe a low A. And that is because it takes a while to channel. And oftentimes, like, you really don't get it off in a lot of content. Like, your boss will die in dungeon runs by the time this drops, and you're not going to get the full 6-second duration. And in PvP you're never gonna drop this on someone and actually hit them if they're actually solid players and moving around. So probably a little lower for me. Ray of Frost, this is a skill that I think is really exclusive for PvP or hard challenge rifts, and that's because the chill is really, really good. That can allow you to freeze enemies for PvP. And so for PvP, I'd probably put this as an S skill, but for PvE content, probably like a B. Scorch here, this is something that I've been using a lot, and the reason for this is there's no channeling, there's no stopping and moving, and what it does is it hits them, knocks back enemies, and it just leaves a burning trail. Really, really nice skill for farming overall and in general. So I would probably put this as an A skill. Once you get to those harder content again, you're probably going to drop this one off. Slow time, this one is one that I have not been able to really kind of delve into quite yet because I don't have my legendary items to really test in PvP. To me, this seems like an exclusive PvP, maybe hard challenge rift skill. And I think that this could potentially be an S skill if you use it in the right build. The problem is I don't know really how to place this one yet because I haven't tested in PvP a whole lot. I haven't done a whole lot of PvP. The last one up is Teleport. This one is just, in my opinion, the best movement ability in the entire game. You can literally hop over and cut corners with this. Like I can just cut corners or just jump around. Like if you're on the ship, for example, you can jump from like the top deck down to the bottom one and just teleport straight over. It's absolutely absurd. One of my favorite skills, and the big reason why I've been loving the Wizard is the teleport skill. So absolute must have in every single build, in my opinion.
Yeah, we were always kind of under the impression that the satyr horse was the best movement ability, but you're saying, coming from somebody with experience playing both of them, that you actually like teleport even more than horse.
Yeah, the horse, the thing is, like, you have to follow the path on the horse, and you also get blocked by walls. You get blocked by random people putting CC in
get
PvP.
Knocked off by wolves.
Yep, knocked off by wolves, black hole, by anything in the game. This is just absurd. And not only this, but you can also modify it so it gives you stealth and does damage. It's so absurd.
All right, cool. Well then, lastly, just go ahead and pull up maybe the market, like where it shows all the gems. And are there any really good options for 1 stars, 2 stars, and just kind of give me like a quick 2-minute breakdown of the gems or something?
Yeah, so first off, for free-to-play players, Trick Shot Gem's really good. You use a lot of channeling skills, so something like this can actually be really, really beneficial. Berserker's Eye, always good. And then the other 1 stars are kind of mediocre. For 2 stars, Bloody Reach, you're going to be very far away from your opponents oftentimes. You'll get maximum value from this almost every time. Other than that, really nothing super particular. Maybe Lightning Core, some solid extra damage. After that, we have Howler's Call, actually really like, because you're going to be playing at such a far range. You'll be able to, this wolf kind of auto targets where your enemies are. And so it's really actually quite solid in PvP. Seeping Bile, absolutely amazing. These two are a no-brainer, Seeping Bile and Jade. And then after that, I actually quite like Echoing Shade here on the Wizard. And the reason for this is it'll provide an additional kind of clone that you'll just run up and start basicing for you, which is really, really nice. And you'll get a lot of value out of it because if you're a range class, your clones don't really die all that often. And then one other thing I wanted to note was Bottled Hope. And this one actually can get use from the Wizard because you have a few self buffs. So if you happen to have Bottled Hope and you do want to class swap, then it's not a completely dead gem, and I happen to have one, so I'm anxious to get some of those legendary items that kind of modify my skills so I can get use out of this.
Cool. And then as you dive into Hell 4 here pretty soon, what's going to be like the number 1 and number 2 sets like that you're really going to have your eye on for the Wizard?
Yeah, so if I just pull up someone right here that's got a couple sets on, I'm looking forward to 2 sets in particular, and that's going to be the Grace of the Flagellant set. I don't know if I can find it on someone. I don't know if I can, but the Grace of the Flagellant set is going to be the one where you're going to be doing extra channeling damage. Here we go. Channel damage, continual damage, extra damage all over the time, and just overall just more damage. It's just like your classic damaging set. And then the second one is actually going to be Windloft Perfection. And this one's going to be an interesting one because it's going to be just strict 20% damage increase as long as you don't get hit. And with a 6-piece set, you can immune yourself from damage a couple of times every 40 seconds. And so it's actually really solid because as the Wizard, you hardly ever get hit. Oftentimes in these more difficult game modes, And so it's just a 20% damage increase across the board, which is absolutely amazing.
Cool. Okay. Well, is there anything that I forgot to ask you about that you wanted to make sure you get in here on the way out?
Um, One thing that's been really surprising to me is how squishy the wizard is. Like, you know how the life totals are pretty much the same. Like, I have 73k life, which is about the same as my Crusader, but something in this kit, I don't know if there's like a hidden mechanic or if it was just the fact that block chance was higher on the Crusader. I don't know what's going on, but I am actually way squishier on the wizard than I was on the Crusader. And so I would say that damage, absolutely prioritize this over life. Life doesn't really mean anything for the wizard as far as I've seen. I'm actually really curious to see because I do feel like there's so much that can kill me as the wizard compared to the Crusader.
In Diablo 3, there was an inherent bonus that melee classes got where they just naturally took less damage compared to your ranged classes. So there could be a mechanic like that kind of causing you to feel a lot more squishy swapping from melee to ranged.
Yeah, and I do. Part of me wonders if those are in the game. You know, some sort of hidden negative or hidden bonus to the melee classes, because I find myself dying on the ship if I don't pay attention for maybe a little bit extra time than I normally would. Whereas the Crusaders, I would just kill them off with Blessing of the Worthy. It was just no problems.
All those months you spent
away.
ridiculing me for dying in the ship as a demon hunter, and now you understand. We can't just sit there AFK for 5 minutes.
You cannot. Phoenix Ashes has been more useful than I thought.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thanks for stopping by and sharing some insight. And I'm gonna link to Veiled's channel down below if you're looking to get some daily Diablo Immortal and wizard themed content. You'll definitely want to check out that channel. So, all right, Veiled, have a good one. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.